Happiness is described as an emotion, but at the same time, happiness is from the perspective. From an emotional perspective, happiness is the ultimate feeling that we want to pursue. But there is a difference between happiness and pleasure.
What is your definition of happiness? Happiness can be a goal or philosophy that you discovered, or could be a moment of emotions. It depends on how you define it, and the answer that you give changes as time goes by, as you experience more in life. Happiness is just like love, a word that we use often, which means it is something that we always want.
How do you describe happiness in a shape, color, or a scenery? Personally, I can imagine happiness as a warm-toned sunshine, bright, but it is something that I can stare at without hurting my eyes. But the shape of it keeps changing because it is bright enough to confuse the shape of it. It looks like it is something that you can catch like a dandelion seed, but with a minutely blown wind, it disappears. It is my personal imagination, but you have imagined the shape of happiness in your way, I believe.
Pleasure, appreciation, and joys are how we describe happiness as emotions. However, after the end of pleasure, appreciation, and joy, we often forget that we once achieved happiness. The reason that people pursue happiness is that they want to get emotional stimulation. If we can get a feeling that is similar to happiness by emotional stimulation, then it is more close to a pleasure that we seek for and ends up addicted to it. Having a philosophical perspective towards happiness is important because happiness is not simply an emotion, and without the philosophical perspective, you cannot find the meaning of happiness. Once you have the definition of happiness, you can fight sorrow and misery that you face at the moment. Materialistically, you can purchase the satisfaction and comfort, but they cannot purchase the meaning of happiness. You can purchase whatever you want, but if you can own what you want easily just by spending money, then you end up losing appreciation towards objects or achievements. The moment when you think what you have is granted, that's the moment when you lose the appreciation.
In life, there is nothing granted. People around you appreciate you, and these people are not granted if you do not show respect or if you do not show care. Whatever you own at the moment can be vanished if you lose the responsibility. We are being responsible to keep what we have unawarely because we are aware that happiness is somewhere around us. Happiness is not the competition between others. It does not have a size, it doesn't have shape, and it doesn't have a value. Happiness cannot be measured as numbers. It can be only described in words, and the perspective towards it creates the vague shape. You can compare the definition of happiness, but you cannot compete with the idea of happiness. Just like the moon and the sun, sometimes it seems so close to get, but it can never hold in your hand. Happiness is the same. The person you love can be the reason that you feel happy at the moment, but at the same time, you can't rely on the happiness solely from the person you love. Love comes with an expiry date. There is a limit to life. Have an ability to find happiness solely with your own ability. Just like the sun and the moon, there will always be happiness that you are looking for. Remember, happiness is valuable because you are able to feel the sorrow and misery. Without sorrow and misery, you wouldn't know the meaning of happiness. The result of addiction from happiness is indulging the pleasure and losing the morals and ethics. Humans are living in the delicate borderline of conscience. Therefore, greed and desire towards happiness without strong perspective, the borderline of conscience will collapse, and the vague shape of happiness will lose the shape of it, which means all your achievements will fall apart. Discipline is the limiter of keeping your happiness. Control your emotions and desires. What you have to fight for is temptations and curiosity. There is no answer for life. but there are wrong answers in life. The temptation that you can think of that is not morally and ethically correct is what you have to fight for. It might give you pleasure, excitement, and rewarded feelings, but it is the first step that you put in towards destruction disguised as happiness. Become a strong person. Without strength and durability, you cannot continue with the journey of discovering happiness. Continuity is important in life. I have talked about perspective, respect, responsibility, purpose, love, preference, ethics, correctness, balance, title, emotions, and behaviors. Those are what you need to find happiness in life, and we will continuously question and answer those topics until we find the definition of happiness in your own way. In the box of life, we may not have happiness, but we can discover the meaning of happiness. As long as you have a strong definition of happiness, you are considered a happy person, because without the definition of happiness with you, you see the miseries more often. It is the bitterness of life. You have done well, and I believe you will do better in the future. Just keep in mind, happiness is always around us. We just need to appreciate what we have.